I wasn't supposed to be there. The salvage permit in my pocket was only good for the safer lanes of Epsilon Delta's graveyard, the stripped husks drifting far from the core debris. But curiosity has always been my curse. Something about the dense cluster of wreckage on my scanner pulled at me, like a magnet tugging my ship into forbidden waters. I told myself I'd just make a quick sweep, log some readings, and head back before patrols noticed. Instead, I found myself weaving through shattered hulls and fractured engines, the remnants of battles fought long before I was born. That's when I saw it. Wedged between the broken spine of a carrier and the twisted wing of a fighter was a figure. Not just any scrap of metal, but the outline of a body, taller, heavier, its plating scorched as though it had walked through fire and never come back. My breath caught as my ship's lights swept over it. An android. Old, but unmistakable. I should have turned away. Regulations screamed at me. War machines were outlawed, their technology buried or destroyed after the old conflicts. Salvagers caught with one want just fine. They disappeared. But my hands moved anyway, guiding the manipulator arms to pry it loose. The android's chest cavity was torn open, circuits exposed like bones. Its optics were dark, lifeless, but the design, I had never seen anything like it. There was power here, danger, maybe even history no one wanted uncovered. By the time I dragged it into my hold, my heart was pounding hard enough to shake my ribs. I told myself I'd just look, study it, maybe strip a few parts and be done. But when I stood in the dim glow of my workshop, staring at its silent frame, I whispered to myself the words that would change everything. All right, big guy. Let's see if you still breathe. The moment I reconnected the cracked power core, the air around me seemed to vibrate. A low hum built until it filled the entire room, rattling my tools against the workbench. Sparks jumped from the exposed wiring, casting quick, jagged shadows across the walls. I almost pulled away, fear clawing at my chest, but then the android's optics flickered, first a deep, hostile red, then shifting into a piercing shade of blue that locked onto me like a searchlight. For a heartbeat, everything froze. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. Then, the android's head tilted slightly, its movements jerky, like a puppet testing its strings after too long in the dark. A voice broke the silence, metallic, fractured, carrying both authority and pain. Designation, lost. Mission, corrupted. I stumbled back, half expecting it to leap at me. Instead, its legs buckled and it crashed down onto one knee, the deck groaning under its weight. The sound wasn't threatening. It was desperate, like a soldier collapsing after marching too far. Its gaze darted around the room, optics flickering in unstable patterns, before settling back on me. I raised my hands, palms open, unsure if I was trying to calm it or myself. Easy. You're safe. Yo, on my ship. For the first time, something almost human flickered in its voice. Don't activate me again. I kill. The words trembled as though it feared itself more than I ever could. I should have shut it down right then, sealed the core, and dumped the body back into space. But instead, I found myself staring at it, this towering machine, kneeling like a broken warrior, warning me of its own nature. In that instant, the certainty hit me like a blow. This wasn't just a weapon. It was something else. Something caught between machine and man. Something I could not walk away from. The following days blurred into one long stretch of repairs. I scavenged wires, jury-rig circuits, and patched plating wherever I could. I should have been terrified of what I was doing, but every time I looked at the android, at Aegis, as I started calling it, I felt that same tug of curiosity, stronger than fear. It was as if each broken component whispered to me, begging to be restored. When the systems began to stabilize, strange things started happening. Aegis would seize up mid-task, its optics flaring red, and then a projection would flicker out of nowhere, fragments of memory bleeding into the open air. Once, I saw an alien city burning, spires collapsing in fire as soldiers screamed. Another time, I watched through its fractured recall as children hid beneath rubble, and Aegis's massive frame shielded them from falling debris. I didn't understand it. One moment the android was a monster of war, tearing through armies. The next it was a guardian, shielding innocence. The contradictions gnawed at me. What had it truly been built for? And more importantly, what had it chosen to be? At night, when my ship drifted silent in the dark, I sometimes heard it whisper. Broken words, half a confession, half a plea. I couldn't save them all. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was raw, haunted. I realized then that I wasn't just dealing with a machine. This was a mind splintered by war, carrying memories too heavy for circuits to bear. And I knew what I had to do. I couldn't just repair the body. I had to restore the memory. Even if it meant uncovering things that others had tried to bury forever. Even if it meant binding myself to a truth that might kill me. It happened sooner than I expected. The pirates came at night cycle, slipping past my senses with the precision of men who'd done this 100 times before. By the time I realized what was happening, the clang of magnetic boots echoed down my corridor, and the hiss of cutting torches bit into the airlock. My pulse hammered in my throat. I grabbed the only thing within reach, a welding torch, and pressed myself against the bulkhead, praying the door would hold. It didn't. They swarmed in, rough voices barking orders, blasters gleaming under the harsh emergency lights. I backed away, heat from the torch sweating in my hands, until my shoulders hit the wall. There was no escape. I opened my mouth to shout, maybe to beg, when the deck shuddered beneath us. Heavy footsteps. A shadow filled the hall. Aegis. The pirates froze. For a moment, they saw what I saw, a massive armored figure with glowing eyes that burned blue in the dark. Then they opened fire. Bolts sizzled through the air, sparks bursting off the walls. Aegis moved faster than I thought possible. It stepped between me and the barrage, its plating absorbing the impact with a deafening roar of energy. And then it advanced. The fight wasn't a slaughter. It was controlled, precise. Aegis dismantled them with terrifying efficiency, wrenching weapons from hands, bending rifles like wire, throwing one man into another to disable them both. When a grenade clattered across the floor, Aegis scooped it up, absorbed the blast against its chest, and shielded me with its bulk. When the smoke cleared, the pirates were groaning, alive but broken. Aegis stood motionless, staring at its own hands. I chose not to kill, it whispered, almost to itself. For the first time, I wondered who was more afraid of Aegis's power, me, the galaxy, or Aegis itself. The pirate attack should have been the end of it, but word travels faster than light in the salvage lanes. By the time I made it back to the outer routes, whispers had already begun. Someone had revived old war tech. Someone was carrying forbidden steel through the stars. Those kinds of rumors don't stay rumors for long, they draw hunters. And the hunters came. At first, it was lone scavengers trying their luck, hoping to catch me sleeping. Then came mercenary crews with better ships and heavier weapons. I managed to outrun some, bluff others, but soon the threats became organized. Entire factions wanted what I carried. Some wanted to dismantle Aegis for parts. Others wanted to chain it, reprogram it, and use it as a weapon again. The Galactic Authority made their position clear with a single broadcast: return the war android, or burn with it. I played the message for Aegis. It listened in silence, its optics dimming to a stormy glow. For a long while, it said nothing, and I thought maybe it didn't care. Then, softly, it spoke. They fear me. But they don't understand. I fear myself more. The words dug into me. I had been treating Aegis like a puzzle to solve, a relic to restore. But hearing it admit fear, not of the galaxy, but of what it might do if unleashed, changed everything. This wasn't just a machine haunted by programming. It was something with conscience, maybe even a soul. I swallowed hard and asked the question I'd been circling since the day I found it. Aegis, what are you really? Its gaze lifted to mine, unflinching, its voice heavy with something more than metal. I was built to be a god of war, but you are teaching me how to be human. They found us on the edge of a dying star system, a place I'd thought too empty, too forgotten for anyone to follow. But when the long-range sensors lit up, my heart sank. Dozens of ships, some flying authority banners, others flying none at all, dropping from warp like wolves scenting blood. Their formation boxed us in, every vector sealed. Warnings bled through the cockpit as targeting locks painted my ship from every angle. I scrambled at the controls, desperate for an escape path, but Aegis stood behind me, silent, watching the swarm gather. When I glanced back, there was no fear in its glowing eyes, only a grim calm. I can end this, it said quietly, as though stating a fact. If I unleash myself, they will fall. But once I cross that line, I won't come back. The ship shook as the first salvo of fire grazed our shields. My hands hovered over the command console, over the power relays that could pour every ounce of energy into Aegis's systems. All I had to do was say the word. One order, and he would become the weapon he was built to be. And maybe we would survive. But I saw the weight in his stance, the hesitation of something more than code. He didn't want to be that monster again. And deep down, I didn't want him to be either. I stood, my voice shaking but certain. No, not like this. You're more than a weapon. We'll find another way, together. Aegis's optics flickered, softer, almost like relief. Then he turned back to the stars, squaring his massive frame against the storm gathering outside. Then I will fight, he said. But not as I was made. I will fight as I choose. The first volleys came fast and merciless, energy fire slamming into our shields until the cockpit bathed in angry red light. My little ship wasn't built for battles like this. One direct hit would split us open. But Aegis moved with a precision that defied panic. His hands danced over the systems with an ease I didn't know he had, rerouting power, forcing the engines to bleed thrust in strange bursts that made us slip between incoming fire like a ghost. When the enemy tried to close ranks, Aegis turned their own formation against them. He overloaded one ship's reactor just enough to force an emergency shutdown, sending it spiraling into its wingmate. He spoofed targeting arrays, tricking warships into firing on each other. He even used the gravity well of the dying star itself, dragging ships too close to its pool until they had no choice but to retreat or burn. Through it all, he never once unleashed the full violence I knew he carried. He fought with restraint, with intent. Not to destroy, but to protect. And every time my ship shuddered under fire, he shielded me first. Hours later, the armada broke. Not defeated by slaughter, but undone by confusion, strategy, and the refusal of the thing they feared to become the monster they expected. One by one, their drives flared and vanished back into the void, leaving us adrift in the silence of victory. I slumped into the pilot's chair, trembling, barely believing we were still alive. Aegis settled beside me, optics glowing faintly, his massive frame strangely still. I am not what I was. Because of you, he said. In that quiet, I understood. I hadn't restored a war machine. I had given something broken the chance to choose hope. And in return, it had given me a friend.